Hold on 1 second. I'm trying to get all of the pages ready for cross post. But we are live on YouTube. Give me 1 second. Yep, we should be live.
Good morning, everyone. We're just going to wait about 1 to 2 minutes so that everyone can log on and take their seat.
Yep, I emailed them already. I'm going to find the YouTube link now.
So now you are still on camera. I mean, on sound. Welcome. The virtual career coaching series will start in just a moment.
Buenos días y gracias por unirse a la octava serie de orientación profesional virtual de Newark 2020. Para escuchar esta sesión en vivo en español, elija la opción de escuchar en español en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Escuchará una intérprete que habla español en tiempo real. Gracias de nuevo por acompañarnos. Buen día y gracias de nuevo por unirse a la 8ª serie de orientación profesional virtual Newark 2020. Para escuchar esta sesión en vivo en español, elija la opción de escuchar en español en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Escuchará un intérprete que habla español en tiempo real. Gracias de nuevo por acompañarnos.
Welcome to session 8, our final session in the virtual career coaching series. I want to thank you this morning for joining us. Thank you for those of you who have attended multiple sessions. And let's go over what we're going to talk about today. The title of our final session is The Power of the Digital Profile, Leveraging LinkedIn and the virtual networking. Before we begin, I just want to go over some housekeeping rules. Everyone is muted. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box on the left. If you just want to talk, give some feedback to the speakers, talk to other attendees about the content, give suggestions, you can use the chat box, which is on the left. That is the bubble with the 3 buttons in it. Feel free to go into the chat box and use that to communicate with us. If you're having any technical issues, this is where you would let us know. This session is being recorded, and a recording of the webinar is provided to all participants. Let's honor our time together and remain present throughout the session and actively participate. We love when you give us feedback. We love to hear what you are thinking, and please ask lots and lots of questions. So as we came to the close of the virtual career coaching series, I just sat back and I wanted to think about what does this transition mean for us? Because this is another transition for us. We're closing out the virtual career coaching series. Those of us who have attended 4 more sessions will begin our coaching with a high performance leadership coach to really hone in on some of those key issues that are either road barriers in our career or just things that we need to tighten up on or button up on as we begin to interview. So I started thinking about what this means for us, right? And how do we set ourselves up for the next phase? And it just brought to me a quote that all limitations are self-imposed. And what I took from that is that at this moment in time, some of us may be unemployed, some of us may be in transition, not knowing or having some uncertainty about our work, or maybe furloughed, not sure if we're going to come back. But I don't want you to use that moment in time as a limitation. I want you to look at this moment in time as an opportunity to refresh your skills, an opportunity to look into other industries or connected industries, look at some of your transferable skills to see what's in demand now and how we can apply those skills to a new workplace, a virtual workplace. When I was about 10 or 11 years old, my grandfather, everybody knows Mr. Moses now. I think y'all know Mr. Moses. He would work in his office, and it was his office then, but now we call those a man cave. And all my friends would go into the store, and I wanted to go in and ask my grandfather for a quarter so I could go to the bodega in the corner store. And so I run into the office, and there are papers everywhere, spread all over the floor. And anyone who knew Mr. Moses knew that he was a very meticulous person. He was a person that kept everything in order. Everything was neat. Everything had a place. But, being 10 or 11, I was completely oblivious to whatever was going on. And I just stepped over the papers, jumped in and said, "Hey, Granddad, can I have a quarter?" And without saying a word, he just pointed to his old sofa. And the old sofa was this itchy old sofa that he had for many, many years. And in the summer, when you wore shorts, it made your legs itch. And he pointed to the sofa, which meant have a seat. So I wanted the quarter, so I had a seat. So I sat down, and he proceeds to tell me a story. The story was about a chief in a village. The chief placed a boulder in the middle of the road. He placed the boulder in the middle of the road because he wanted to see who would move it, who would walk by. The chief was very proud that he taught his villagers to be strong, to be noble, to be kind, to be helpful. And he said, I know the first person that sees this boulder is going to move it out the road. And so many people went by. A lot of wealthy people went by. They were wealthy in name, wealthy by financial means, and they just walked on by. They complained, but they walked on by. And then later that afternoon, a villager who would be considered a peasant by anyone's standards was going to the market to sell his vegetables, and he came upon this big boulder. He was a frail man. He appeared to be a very frail man, but he put his vegetables down and he began pushing the boulder. Little by little, he moved the boulder. Little by little, he moved the boulder. He pushed again. He pushed harder. He rested for a moment, got back up, pushed again, pushed that boulder over, pushed it again until the boulder was completely out of the road. After it was out of the road, he went back to gather his vegetables, pick up all of his things. And as he was walking, right where the boulder stood was a satchel of gold. The satchel of gold had a note. And it said, this is a gift for the person who showed enough character to move this boulder. No one asked you to do it. You didn't know if anyone was watching. You just did what needed to be done. So this is your reward. And so I stopped for a moment and, I knew what my grandfather was telling me. He was telling me, don't step over, when you see somebody in need, don't step over their papers, help. That was the smaller message. But the bigger message is that in times where you're challenged, that's where your character shines. Your character always shines in a time of crisis. Your character will come through when you are challenged. So don't let anything get in your way. Let your character shine during this very challenging moment. So with that, I would like to introduce my co-host for the day, Shuruq Alfawair. Shuruq is a job developer with the Ironbound Community Corporation. Shuruq?
Hi, thank you, Della, so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Shuruq, and I am the job developer / employment coach at the Ironbound Community Corporation's Financial Opportunity Center. And at the Ironbound, we focus on helping community members reach their financial bottom line through employment coaching, financial coaching, and income supports if needed. My job there is to help people on their job search through resume writing, job search, etc. So if you are in need of any assistance, I will drop my email in the chat box and you can connect with me after the webinar. So now we are going to look into the virtual jobs of the week. As we know, it is a difficult market out there, but here are some job openings. Here are some companies that are looking to hire. First, we have Audible. They are searching for a team manager in their customer care. We have NWDB. They are looking for a manager for their green infrastructure. And we have Horizon looking for a customer service rep. And we also have the Newark Alliance, who is looking for a recruiter / account manager.
Thank you so much, Shuruq. I just want to, for those of you who might not know, NWDB is the Newark Workforce Development Board. They've launched an amazing training program around green infrastructure and are looking for someone who can be trained as a trainer to manage that green infrastructure program. So if anyone has experience in landscaping, engineering, any type of green or environmental type of job that would lend to outdoors work. You do work in some extreme circumstances, so you have to be willing to work in the hot and the cold. But we are definitely looking for someone with 5 or more years of experience to train for this position. So definitely send Shuruq your resumes. Everyone will make sure that Shuruq puts her email in the chat box, so that if you would like to send your resumes for any of these jobs, Shuruq will connect you over to the office so that we can submit them up. All right. Last week, we learned about creating a virtual vision board. When you received your email this morning, you should have gotten a link to your Canva template. Feel free to use that template or just pull out some paper and crayons and glue and magazines and make a paper vision board. We gave you some tools to make vision boards. We talked about how to develop your career narrative. So I hope you guys are working on that. How to make the pivot to a virtual workplace, acing the interview, and what talent recruiters are looking for. Lastly, we discussed responding to interview questions. We do have folks on the line today that can help with that as well. So if you still have some questions from last week, because we know it was a very robust session, lots of questions, feel free to ask questions this week about those items as well. Now, it is time for our audience poll number 1. This is a session recap from last week. So have you started using a vision board since the last session? That's your first one. So everybody run to your computers if you're listening and making your breakfast or your morning coffee, run over to the computer or your phone, grab that, and let's start answering some of these questions. Number 2, when discussing your career aspirations, you should be vocal and clearly define your career goals. Number 3, which of the following is not a part of the STAR method? Okay, now my goal for you all is always 80%. Like 80% is passing. We don't believe in this 65, 70%. 80% is passing. So let's get 80% of the folks who are in front of a computer on to answer this poll. It helps us align some of the information that we also put in the workbook to see what the majority of folks need help with or refining or just some additional information. So we really do encourage your participation in the polls. All right, we're at about 53%. We're going to give it about 30 more seconds. All right, we're getting ready to close it. All right. So 38% have a vision board, 63% do not. So I'm going to encourage you, everyone who does not have a vision board, to create a vision board if you can do one for your career, you can do one for your overall personal goals in life. Log on to the email that we sent you this morning. If you did not get that email, put your name and email the panelists. You can select panelists on the chat box and just send it to the panelists. Put your name and email in there and we'll make sure you get it. So I encourage you to go ahead and start a digital vision board. True or false? When discussing your career aspirations, you should be vocal. Yes, true. And number 3, 63% of us got that right. Test is not a part of the STAR method. That T in STAR stands for task. Okay, now Shuruq, I'm going to turn it back over to you so we can get our session started for the day.
All right. Okay, so the plan for today is to learn the importance of a digital first impression. We're going to learn how to build an eye-catching LinkedIn profile and give you the best practices on how to network virtually, and also how to be really engaging with employers on LinkedIn. So I have the honor to introduce our speakers today. We have Jim Di Pietropolo. Jim is the founder and managing partner at Addison Partners. He has a sincere respect for the pressures faced by his clients and a commitment to getting the job done effectively and efficiently while developing long-term deep client relationships. Building on many years in the recruiting industry, Jim has developed an appreciation for the skills required to succeed. Assertiveness combined with professionalism, the ability to truly listen to and understand a client's needs. While serving as a close business partner for his clients, Jim has uncovered and placed high-value, innovative candidates with strong growth trajectory for Fortune 500 organizations. Jim's extensive recruiting experience includes director and vice president level placements within marketing, sales, and financial disciplines across the CPG, automotive, pharmaceutical, industrial, and business service industries. By providing valuable insight into the labor market from a geographical, functional, and industry perspective, Jim prides himself on a success rate that is second to none, using measurements of candidate quality and cycle time. Jim is also responsible for the training and development of Addison's research staff and is the prime architect of Addison's research-based recruiting model. Before co-founding Addison Partners in 2005, Jim gained extensive recruiting experience with one of New Jersey's most established executive search firms. He holds a BA in liberal arts and MA in corporate communications from Seton Hall University. In addition to his work at Addison, Jim has developed a number of career workshops for Seton Hall student athletes and the general student population, which he delivers quarterly. Additionally, Jim is a mentor to multiple undergraduate and graduate students at the university each year. Along with Jim, we have Maryam. Maryam is currently a rising senior at Seton Hall University, majoring in financing, marketing, and entrepreneurship. She has been a member of the Gerald B. Bacino Center for Leadership Development at the Stillman School of Business for 3 years, where she was mentored by high-level executives and coached on leadership and networking skills. Over the course of her college career, she began working at Addison Partners the summer of her freshman year as an executive search intern focused on researching and finding top talent for Fortune 500 companies. Her work is specialized in identifying needed competencies and specific characteristics of candidate firms for looking to enhance their team roles with technology, marketing, finance, corporate strategy, and human resources at the manager through C-suite level. Most recently, she started a position as the LinkedIn campus ambassador for Seton Hall University, where she has helped give feedback to over 100 undergraduate student profiles. In addition to her current roles, Maryam has led various LinkedIn implementation projects on and off campus. She is currently revamping the structure of how to teach and coach students when using LinkedIn at Seton Hall University. Also, she was able to set up a program to get more employees and executives to become more active on LinkedIn. Maryam is very passionate about digital transformation and hopes to disrupt trends for company change as needed. And with that, I give you Maryam and Jim.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to meet you all and see you all. Just to start off, again, thank you so much for that warm welcome, Shuruq. For me, I've been an executive search intern for about 2 years at Addison Partners, and I'm currently a student ambassador at Seton Hall University for LinkedIn. Now, to introduce my co-speaker.
Hi, I'm Jim DiPietropolo. I am the founding and managing partner of Addison Partners. So we are as Shuruq was nice enough to introduce, we are an executive search firm, commonly referred to as headhunters, as my mom likes to call me. I'm really excited to be presenting to everyone here. My wife, Andrea, actually, when she immigrated from Brazil to the United States in 2008, lived in the Ironbound section of Newark on, I guess it was the corner of Elm Street and McCarter. So my wife and I are, although we live in Morris County, our supermarket of choice is Ciabra's in the Ironbound section. So pre-pandemic, we were very active in a church in the Ironbound section and visiting Newark as well. So really excited to share with everybody my expertise of working on LinkedIn, which includes probably viewing a few thousand profiles each week. So would happy to bring everybody on board and into my LinkedIn brain, if you will. So I will hand it back to Miriam.
Okay. So to start off, we're going to be discussing all about going beyond the job board and profile. Now, if you look at here, we're going to ask ourselves, why is LinkedIn so important? Why does it matter more than ever in today's modern world? So if you look at it this way, right now, there are over 610 million profiles on LinkedIn alone. And since the start of Corona and COVID-19, there's been a measure of 55% increase of people actually using their profiles, people creating their profiles, and actually being active on their profiles. And if we take an even closer look, about 92% of Fortune 500 companies are active on LinkedIn. And when I say active, they're looking for candidates, they're releasing information about their companies and sharing content. And then if you look at it even closer, there's about 77% of recruiters are actively looking for candidates for roles that they have open, whether it's different levels, manager, entry level, executive level, they're looking for people right now. And if you even take another closer look, there are about over 20 million jobs open currently on LinkedIn. So that's where you want to be, because that is exactly where the job market is. So when you want to look at it this way, this is how you break down the job search in simple terms. So it's broken on into 3 different parts. And the first part is about 20%. It's all about fine-tuning your profile and your resume so that it shows who you are, it shows your experience, and it shows your interests. Because that's what people are looking for. They want to understand who you are as a professional and a personal person. Now, the second part is all about networking effectively and professionally. And that's about 60% of the job search. And what do I mean when I say networking effectively? It's about increasing your chances of actually being interviewed by 5 to 10 times more likely than you would if you weren't using this kind of method. And it's about bypassing the HR applicant bottleneck. What I mean by that is essentially that HR professionals have so many profiles and resumes that they look through. It's about going to the next level and being in that shorter list of potential candidates that they look at. And that increases the number of people who could potentially endorse or refer you. I know the bulk of all my internships or past work experiences have been from people referring me or endorsing me or being on LinkedIn. And then the last part is actually looking for the job, which is only 20% because that's the final part about submitting your application. It all happens beforehand. So I'll hand it back to Jim.
Thank you, Miriam. Before we jump into the LinkedIn profile itself, LinkedIn without a proper networking plan is a tool that you're not going to maximize. So before we dive into the LinkedIn profile, I want to dive into networking, and in this case, virtual networking. An important statistic pre-COVID-19, 70% of all jobs filled in the United States, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics and Yale University, were filled via networking. What that means is if you're not networking, you're only seeing 30% of the available jobs that are out in the market. This trend is going to continue, but now shift to virtual networking. What do I mean by that? In the era of COVID-19, there's this virtual shift. If we think about industry trade shows, networking events, even going to family parties and having conversations with relatives or friends on the block about what jobs might be being filled at their company, we've lost that, at least temporarily. So where that void will be filled is by LinkedIn groups, which we'll get into a little bit later. Also, virtual events on LinkedIn. Companies are now shifting to virtual trade shows. Recruiters, both executive recruiters like myself, but more importantly, corporate recruiters are now shifting to virtual networking. First, what they're doing is leveraging their network on LinkedIn to see who am I connected to in this particular field. And then also they will go to those virtual industry groups. The other change that we're seeing that with COVID-19 has accelerated rapidly is online applicants are now being screened by text-based algorithms. So what that means is when you submit your resume via a corporate website, before it even touches the eyes of a person, a computer has pre-screened, qualified, and either selected you to move forward or declined your application. Also, just as when we go to certain websites and chat with customer service reps, chatbots are also being introduced to conduct first-round interviews. This automation, it essentially is eliminating the ability to sell, where so many candidates, where they might have gaps for a particular role, can sell their background. And the final piece, in a market like this, where unemployment is high, what we're finding is candidates, because they just want to be viewed by a company, are applying to multiple roles on a company's website. So what happens is the recruiters are, if they don't have a chatbot or they don't have an algorithm, they're getting 200, 300, sometimes 400 resumes for an individual job, and they become overwhelmed. The next piece that I want to talk to you about is breaking networking down really into 3 key areas. First is being prepared. What I recommend everyone does is prepare an informal pitch. Test and learn your pitch with your close friends and family. The reason why I say this is if you can't articulate why you are hireable, how can you expect someone who you're networking with to hang up the phone and forward your resume along? So what you need to do is, before you completely explore, have a focused plan, and everyone that you network with, have an outline of what you want to cover during that phone call. The next piece is building lasting and mutual beneficial relationships. I can't tell you how many people I've placed in jobs or networked with that I've known for 10 plus years. Networking isn't all about you. You have 2 types of networking: proactive networking and reactive networking. The proactive type is when you're active on LinkedIn groups, you're active posting articles. The reactive networking is when you need to go to the market to seek a new role. What's important is building real relationships, build trust, mutual support. Every time you have a networking conversation, follow up with a note. And continue to build rapport with your virtual network. How do you do that? On LinkedIn, it is liking or commenting on the posts of your network. And also, when someone asks for help, be prepared to return the favor. And the final piece is being grateful. When someone in your network recommends you for a job, they are in a sense putting their reputation on the line by saying to their employer, I had an amazing conversation with someone. We should really interview this person. So thank people for the effort. If you decline an offer that was introduced via your network, circle back decline it gracefully, but also circle back with the person who you networked with on that opportunity to thank them and explain why you have moved forward with a different role. Now, finally, on the networking side, networking is more than just getting an interview. It lets you first practice talking about your work. It's that art of answering that first interview question we all get. What do you do? Or tell me about yourself. Articulating your story takes practice. So after you've built your plan, what I recommend is fine-tuning your strengths and achievements. And what's next for you during these conversations. You can also test and learn what gets people excited who are experts within your industry. When you're networking with somebody, talk to them about your experience. Does this make sense? Does this sound interesting? Look for the response, excellent point, or if you're networking for a role at a specific company, if you get an answer like, that's exactly what we're exploring, that's a new product we're going to market with, you want to make a note, and so during the interview to leverage that intel. Next, talking to your network helps you both expand what you should be looking to do as well as focus. Asking people, and I put this area in kind of 2 different areas. What I mean by that is you have people who know you, but not your industry. So you can talk to your family members, your close friends, and say, you know me, if I was going to change fields, what do you think I'm qualified for? What do you think my personality fits? And sometimes those free conversations will just get your mind thinking of different areas to take your career. For those who know your field, when you're having a conversation, talk to them about who they're interviewing. What are they seeing as competition? Also ask the question of, if you're going to expand your search, where would they focus? Also finding out, and I think this intel is critical, where do you think our field is going? And just getting extra insight. Finally, and step 3 is talking to your network provides interview and company intel. What I mean by that is sometimes you'll see two identical roles at a company. Let's use a financial analyst role, for example. You may see a financial analyst role in Division A of a company, then you might see the identical role in Division B. By talking to your network, you can explore what's the best entry point at that company. Is the company investing in one division versus another? You can also find out, and as someone who's very active in the Seton Hall community, and I always leverage my Seton Hall connections, because if you're a graduate in particular of a Seton Hall, of Rutgers, a Montclair State, of a Northern New Jersey school, we have so many fellow alumni from these universities working in companies. You can also ask someone in your network, is there a hiring manager that wears my school colors? And it just allows another warm connection, if you will. So I'm going to hand it back over to actually, we're going to start with a poll before we hand it to Mary.
Okay, so we are ready for our second audience poll. Oops, I'm sorry, guys. All right, audience poll number 2. Do you have a LinkedIn profile? How many people are already on LinkedIn? Even if you haven't fully optimized your profile yet, how many people have an actual profile? Raise your hand if you have a profile. Awesome, I see all the hands being raised in the chat. Wonderful. This is awesome, wonderful. So we hope that you'll be able to take some of the tools today to enhance those profiles. All right, we're gonna close the poll in about 30 seconds. For those folks on the line that don't have a profile, don't feel bad. We are here to help. So if you have attended the 4 more sessions, a career coach, this can be one of the things you work on with your career coach, setting up your profile, setting up your LinkedIn profile. Okay, it's pretty easy, it's painless, it's seamless. All right, so the poll is getting ready to close. 82% of our audience has a LinkedIn profile. Wonderful news, wonderful news. And we are here to support the remaining 18%. Miriam, I am going to turn it back over to you now.
Thank you. So what we're going to be looking at is, I saw your numbers, and it's all about getting into LinkedIn and how we're going to use that to enhance our profile and our tool. So let's just dive right in. So setting up your profile. When you set up your profile in the very beginning, you have 2 options. Either you choose the free option where you have a free account subscription, or you have a premium subscription. What I suggest, and what we actually decided, me and Jim both, was test drive the free trial, but don't feel the need to have a premium account membership. So what features come in with the premium are you get direct messaging to recruiters, you get more insights, but at the same time, most of the time when we're recruiting at Addison, people accept connection requests more than they accept LinkedIn or in-mails from recruiters. For connections, anyone can connect with anyone. You're not limited. So that's with the free one. But when you're looking at, we'll kind of get into it a bit later, when you're using LinkedIn Learning, you do need a premium account. But what we suggest is test drive it, use the free 1-month trial and use it to get kind of insights, get an experiential feel. But once you kind of master LinkedIn, it's not necessary, so you don't have to have it. But again, our recommendation is to test drive it for free and explore the online learning option that we'll just describe and break down more for you later on. But premium is nice to have, but again, not necessary. So creating a profile. I know about a little over 10% don't have profiles. That's all right, because we're here to learn. So from the very beginning, you want to have a professional picture. If you see here, this person has a professional outfit, she's dressing to impress, she looks great, and it's about, again, setting yourself professionally. Now, what you want to have is 100% completion in your profile. You want to describe your past work experiences. You want to put your education, show your school colors for that potential alumni catch, and humanize your profile. Include activities, philanthropy, community service. What parts of what do you do in your free time? Essentially, just humanize it and make your profile more personable. What you want to do is put your email address in summary, so it could be easier for recruiters to reach out to you if they come across your profile. I know for me, putting my email in helps more people interact with me and email me. And what you want to do is, with your LinkedIn profile, you have the option to edit your URL. So you could set it to your first and last name at the very beginning, instead of having a very generic URL code where it's different and it's automated. So it's easier for people to find your name in your profile. Next, you want to have a very compelling about or summary. Again, this is where people are going to be looking. They want to know who you are as a person and why are you different than any other internship program manager or any other recruiter. You want to single yourself out. And again, you want to keyword out your profile, because when you do that, and we'll show this in a little later on, but recruiters find you by keywords. So if you have a distinctive word, for example, if you're in accounting and you have coding or broadcasting or a keyword, it helps you pop up in searches more. And lastly, you want to update your status. You want to update your roles. You want to update projects you're working on. You want to show that you're being interactive and you're actually interacting with your followers, your network, and doing more for your experience. If you're speaking at a conference or you're going to a conference, interact and update your status. So looking at profile pictures, your profile says what you want it to say. I want you all to ask yourselves this question. So can your profile picture be your Facebook profile, or can it be your dating app profile picture, or is it a selfie? If it's yes to any of those questions, it should not be your LinkedIn profile, because you need to make sure that you're dressing to impress. Again, people judge by your pictures. You need to be conscious of that. Now, breaking it down. So LinkedIn has 3 different degree levels of connections. So how does my network connect to a potential key network? If you look at it here, this is my network on the left. And on the right, let's say it's Jim's network. So I have my first degree connections, and his first degree connections. When I'm connected to Jim, and he's my first connection, his first connections become my secondary degree connections. And then if you look at it this way, you're even more connected, you're more open to possibilities of connecting with other individuals. With group members, you have the option of messaging anyone who's in the same group, and we'll talk again about the groups later on in the presentation. But with your first degree connections, you have their full contact information, meaning you have your emails, you're able to message them, you can interact with them. And second is they're easier to add, and third is just more not necessarily in your direct connection, but you're able to reach them. It's all about connecting with people so you can find people and you could be found. Now I'm going to hand it back to Jim. You're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Now I think I'm off mute. Thank you. I'm going, for the purpose of today's conversation, we're going to break the job search down into 3 primary examples. Example number 1 is what I would basically say is your standard job search, where you are an online applicant that you see on a corporate website, on LinkedIn, or maybe through a career services area. The second way would be targeting LinkedIn company networking, and specifically potentially targeting the Newark 2020 companies, for example. You set your sights on a specific company. We could use, I'm going to use Prudential as an example later. And you decide, I love everything about the Prudential brand. I keep hearing great things about people who work there. I want to go and network to find a role at that company. And 3 is you are contacted by a headhunter like myself or a corporate recruiter. the typical online job application process, if you look at it broken out, it's quite long. And I often hear from folks that I've applied for a job, I haven't heard anything, I put my resume in, no one's gotten back to me. Breaking the process down and why networking is so important, I think when you look at the process this way, you understand why we need a different approach. So the typical online process, you identify a job opportunity with a company. So you go to audible.com or prudential.com. You submit your resume online. On average, online postings are 200 plus applicants. If it's a small to medium-sized company, they have individual people looking at each applicant and making a decision. Some companies that are larger use text-based algorithms to take that 200 number down to 8 or 12. Then the corporate recruiter who's assigned to the job sits with the human resources manager and says, here are the top 12 people out of 200 that I found that have applied for this job. Then the recruiter and the HR manager will typically pick somewhere around 6 resumes to review with the hiring manager. Then the hiring manager and the recruiter and HR will select 3 to 4 candidates to then interview. So again, if we're at that 200 number of applicants, they're only interviewing 3 to 4 people. Then there's an on-site interview and a job offer. So what I want to show you how to do is essentially shorten that process via LinkedIn networking to leverage your network to bypass the 200 so you automatically get to that 4 to 6 number. So on the LinkedIn process, which I'm going to show you, is you identify a job opportunity or you identify a company that you want to target. You then target your LinkedIn network. You look at who you're connected to that works at that company or potentially who you have a connection to via school or some other type of online LinkedIn group. You engage with that person. Then you hopefully during that conversation ask that connection to submit your resume. And then your resume is at least in the pile of HR in that, let's call it 8 or so resumes, but ideally it's actually even going to the hiring manager. So how do we do that? And even actually before we do that, let me talk to you really quickly about how recruiters find candidates on LinkedIn. So as an executive recruiter and as a corporate recruiter, we have a different dashboard. We have the ability to search on things like job title, location, the company you work for, the schools you went to, your year of graduation, and keywords for particular roles. If we first go back to, seem to just be moving, sorry about that. If we go back to the LinkedIn search criteria, one of the key things is this open to new opportunities. The reason why that's critical is you see how the search results are shown. If I was to put in finance manager, there are thousands of people that come up, but I have the ability of the recruiter to say, who's exploring an opportunity? The reason why that's important is it helps me go from 600 million people to people who are not only in the functional area I want to hunt, but also those folks who are open to new opportunities. So that's a critical box to check on your LinkedIn profile. So this is an example of sample LinkedIn targeting networking. Prudential, a Newark 2020 employer. I went on their website, grabbed the first job that came up. It was a disability claims specialist. So I read the job description. As an applicant, if that was a role that I wanted to pursue, I would say, okay, I know this role. The title is disability claims specialist. I know this role is going to be in the disability claims area. Prudential uses this title as a specialist. They probably have a disability claims manager or a disability claims director heading up these areas. So then what you do is you go to the search box of LinkedIn, click people, and then select Prudential as your company. You put disability claims as the title. Now, to make this as what I call a warmer networking lead, I chose to put Rutgers in, assuming that I was a Rutgers graduate. Then my results came up with 2 people. One of them is a director of long-term disability claims. So I know that this person is a director in the department where this job exists. If you were to get no search results, you then want to expand your target. So the warm lead, which we're saying in this instance would be a fellow alumni of the same college. You could also look for folks who are in the same LinkedIn group as you. You could also look at shared connections. So if you are looking at, if no one came up that was with the school, you may go and search to see, LinkedIn allows you to search first and secondary connections. So you could pick your second connections and see, who do I know that knows this person leading the disability claims area? I could use my Rutgers intro, or it would be even better. Look, I see that someone I worked with previously is connected to this person. The other thing that you can search on is shared hobbies, interests, or affiliations. This would be what your LinkedIn group, but also something like, and I use this trick when I mentor student athletes, and the trick I use for them is an NCAA college athlete. And this really works well for folks who are earlier in their career, who have had that student athlete experience, because they're able to search in a keyword for folks who also had a similar experience. And I just, again, recommend this type of keyword searching around interests and affiliations, because again, it just helps to make this connection warm. And what do I mean by the connection? So when the profile comes up, in this instance, it's a disability claims person, what I would do is put a warm and personal message. In this case, the connection or the warm lead is the fact that I, as the applicant, went to Rutgers, the hiring manager went to Rutgers. So I'm mentioning nothing specifically about the role yet. I'm just saying I would love to connect with you as a resident of Newark. I admire the Prudential brand. I see what you're doing for the local community. I would love to connect. So when someone gets that message, they're going to know it's not an automated bot and seeking to connect with them. This is someone who took the time to read their profile. It's someone who took the time to research the company they work for. After they accept that connection, you then have the ability to freely message back and forth. And you do have, sometimes it's the personal email, sometimes it's the work email. And what I recommend is, after they connect, just sending them a note. Thanks for accepting the connection. And that's where you mention, I'm exploring claims roles at Prudential. I noticed you're in claims. You're also a Rutgers grad. Would you be open to a quick exploratory conversation about a claims career at Prudential? So this person who doesn't know you is getting a message, though, where they do feel like they are somewhat connected. Because of this Rutgers connection, or if it was a student athlete connection, or if it was a shared LinkedIn group. This really is the key thing to do. Now, what I've done is, I'm sorry, I'm going to pass this over to Miriam now to let her talk to you a little bit about the search and industry function.
Thank you, Jim. So to break it down, how do you find these people on LinkedIn? How did you find that special services director at Prudential? What you want to do is look at this. Everyone has access to this when you have just a general LinkedIn profile. You have all these filters that you could have options to choose from, which narrow down your search. So for me, if I wanted to look at people from Seton Hall, being from Seton Hall, saying schools there, if I want to look at Amazon, and I want to look in the New York area. So if you see there, click all those filters. I'm able to filter out first and secondary connections that I potentially reach out to if I'm looking for a job at Amazon. It's about using your angles and finding those people within the industry and or function that you're interested in. Now I'm going to hand it back to Jim.
Thanks, Miriam. So the idea of LinkedIn is it's a tool, not just a job board. As we talked about earlier, the challenge with using any online application is that the market, particularly today, is flooded with lots of resumes. One point that I wanted to make really quickly for folks who are looking for a job right now. I've been recruiting since 1998. What I can tell you is March, April, and May, recruiting essentially stopped. Yes, companies were still doing interviews, but they were not doing a lot of hiring. We've noticed in the last week, companies are flicking that switch on to go and recruit. And they've told us that July, August, September, as the country reopens, they're reopening hiring. So I just point this out for anyone who's been looking for a job these last 3 or 4 months, that might be thinking, I'm not getting any calls back. It has nothing to do with you as an individual or you as a candidate. It just has to do with the market that we were experiencing. But we are now coming, just as we're opening restaurants and opening everything else up, we're now beginning to move forward with everything else from a hiring standpoint. So what we have in Newark is this amazing Newark 2020 Alliance. We've got employers like Audible, Prudential, Panasonic, Verizon, Mars Wrigley that have said, we want to hire people from our community. So what I did is I just said, let me look and see on LinkedIn, how many potential networking targets do you have at the Newark 2020 Alliance employers? Audible has it's just over 1,000 employees on LinkedIn in the New York region. Verizon has 22,000 employees in the New York City region alone on LinkedIn. Mars, nearly 2,000. Horizon, over 3,000. United Airlines, over 3,000. PSE&G, over 4,000. So what we have here are 30, 40, 50,000 people that are working for a Newark 2020 Alliance company in the greater New York area that are great sources for you to target. One other thing that I wanted to touch on to help your search work is the idea of LinkedIn groups. So LinkedIn has groups for every career function. If you work in marketing, if you work as a teacher, if you work in nursing, if you work as an electronics engineer, there are specialized LinkedIn groups for every career function. If you have a career function you work in today, you want to join those groups. If you're thinking about changing careers or expanding into a new area, join those LinkedIn groups, because what you're able to do is you're able to see what are people talking about, what are the trends in those industries, and who are the people I want to connect with and who are the companies. LinkedIn also allows unlimited messaging if you're a member of a group. So when if you join the marketing group that has 100,000 members, you can direct message every single one of those folks. Recruiters like myself post jobs to those groups. Hiring managers post jobs to those groups. I see them all the time coming across my feed. My company has a marketing manager role. Apply online here, but also direct message me if you're interested. So that's very important. And then also the ability to ask questions. So this is the ability for you to further explore and ask questions of people who work in your field. I would recommend LinkedIn groups is where you want to join for sure. And then I'll hand back to Miriam to close this out.
So before we get in, I know we have a short poll that should be either before or after the slide. Just wanted to check in. Okay, I'll go right ahead and explain it. So enhancing your skills. What does it take to really take yourself to the next level when it's about your skill sets and your knowledge? Essentially, what you want to do is utilize LinkedIn Learning to the best of your ability. Now, for me personally, I am a LinkedIn Learning ambassador for Seton Hall. So it's all about getting students on there and really utilizing their subscription to actually learn what they can with different various topics and videos and training sessions. Now, everyone has LinkedIn Learning if you start the subscription for 1 month free, which I highly, highly recommend. And so when you have that view and you have that subscription, it's customized per user. So it gives you modules that are relevant to your current role. So what are you working on? How is, for me, for example, executive search, what's really going on in the industry? about your connections. What are my other connections on LinkedIn watching? What are they training themselves in? And your interests, if you're interested in digital marketing, strategy, consulting, etc. And it also shows you what's trending on LinkedIn at the moment. What are the bulk of these users using and teaching themselves? And then from there, you can look at even your skills, the skills that you have on your profile, and ask yourself, how can I enhance it? They give you the tools and the videos to do that. And lastly, they tell you what's trending in your industry, whether it be consulting, CPG, automotive. They tell you exactly what's trending in your industry and what are the changes and disruptive trends that are going on. So I highly, highly recommend this tool. So I just want to close it off and say right before the poll. Let me wait for the poll.
Thank you so much, Miriam. We are going to jump into a poll. We will open up for Q&A for both Miriam, Jim, and our next speaker, Tasha, after our next segment. All right, so poll number 3. I see folks are already jumping in there. Which of the following LinkedIn features have you used? My networks, job search, messaging, LinkedIn groups, LinkedIn learning, none of the above. So to Miriam's point, take advantage of some of the trial. You get a month trial on both LinkedIn Premium and the LinkedIn Learning. I took a course in the LinkedIn, a few courses in the LinkedIn Learning. They actually will show up if you do a certification, they'll show up in your LinkedIn profile. So if you're looking to show that you have a specialty in a certain area, that will show on the bottom of your LinkedIn profile. So make sure you take advantage of that. All right, we have about 55% of the folks answering the poll. Come on, we got to get to 80%, everybody. 80 is passing. All right, so we have a lot of people who have so far used it for job search, networking, messaging, LinkedIn groups. So it looks like we have some active participants on LinkedIn, which is really, really amazing. So if you haven't done this already, everyone on the line today, please go to the Newark 2020 page on LinkedIn, like the page, and connect with us. Also connect with your speakers that you've heard throughout the past couple of weeks. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Gives you an opportunity to make that connection, make it meaningful in real time. So reach out to Jim. He's an awesome resource. So is Miriam. They know LinkedIn, eyes closed, hands down. They know this work. So connect with them on LinkedIn. And I'm sure if you have a question here or there and you DM them, they will answer. All right, so we want to thank them, and we'll come back to, like I said, Q&A in just a moment. It is my pleasure. To introduce our next speaker. Bear with me 2 seconds, everybody. There we go. All right. Tasha Kersey is a people care director at Audible. Through her work and her career, she has been committed to finding ways to make work for everyone. Her personal mission has led her to various HR roles in recruiting, talent management, learning and development, and diversity and inclusion. Financial services, media, entertainment, aviation, and tech. Now that's a career, Tasha. Regardless of the role, her default approach is to contribute to organizational progress through cross-functional partnership and authentic value for a rich mix of diverse talent. Tasha, welcome. We are so glad to have you.
Thank you, Della. I'm so glad to be here and super excited to be part of this experience with all of you.
Thank you. And I just want to take a moment to not only thank Tasha, but to thank Audible as an organization for being such an excellent community partner. Through the COVID response, and even prior to COVID, Audible had a program called Lunch Out Wednesdays. For those of you who don't know, Lunch Out Wednesdays supports local small businesses by purchasing set amounts of gift cards so that all of the employees at Audible can eat locally and support the local economy here in the city of Newark. That has raised tons and tons of money for local businesses. I hear that it really helps. Some of them say keep their business open throughout the summer, especially when it gets quiet around the college campus. So we want to thank you for that. They also have done a beautiful renovation of the Innovation Cathedral, which is a workspace that Audible utilizes and also hosts different community and forward-facing tech events in that space. Audible also has Audible Scholars, which is a high school internship program, and they also do a college internship program and are actively recruiting. I know you guys just onboarded almost 70 interns, I think, for the college program this past week. Yeah, so they do a lot. And we also have Newark Working Kitchens. Newark Working Kitchens was it was stood up in the midst of COVID. Tasha, can you share a little bit about some of these things and what drove you to work at Audible? Because you've been at Audible, what, 3 months now?
3 months now. So still feeling quite new in certain respects, but definitely feel plugged into everything that we're doing and excited about our work, particularly our work with the community. So you've highlighted some wonderful initiatives already, and just to give you a little bit of a sense, of why we do what we do and how we do it. So you might have noticed on the screen with my picture on the right-hand side, or my right-hand side, there was a list of our people principles, right? It was sort of goes through what our people principles are. And they're essentially our company's values, what we stand for. And one of our values and one of our people principles is activating caring. I mean, what we do in the Newark community, in our local community, is very much rooted in why we exist. We are in Newark because we care about Newark. We want it to be part of the Renaissance in Newark. We respect the history of Newark and just the richness of it. So what we do in terms of our Lunch Out Wednesdays, we encourage our employees to take a break, get outside, explore the community, and invest our dollars through a subsidy that we provide for lunch in the local retail community, right? So that's our way of increasing the revenues and sort of giving back to a community that we love. And Della, you mentioned the work that we're doing through Newark Working Kitchen. So that's particularly close to my heart because it was an initiative that we doubled down on in response to COVID-19. And part of the reason why when I started 3 months ago, and I started working from home, right? So I know that what we are doing in the community right now is, we recognize that a lot of our employees are not able to be there, be investing in the communities, go out to lunch. So what else could we do to keep our community sort of alive and thriving? So that's what we're doing with the COVID, with the Newark Working Kitchens initiative in response to COVID-19. We've upped our commitment. We've through a donation of $1.5 million to Newark restaurants. And what it helps do is feed first responders and some of the community's most vulnerable residents. So we're talking about the elderly and those who are in economic need, being able to at least get a meal through the participating restaurants. So it's something that I was extremely proud of, especially joining and hearing about the work that we were doing in the community.
Thanks so much for that, Tasha. In addition to being a great community partner, Audible has also been an amazing employer partner. We work very closely. I don't know, a lot of people don't know, but I'm on weekly calls with Audible discussing ways to infuse local talent into the workforce at Audible. We know that many of the jobs are very specialized around tech and software development content. And so we're thinking about innovative ways to increase the talent pool of Newarkers within Audible's ranks. As some of the ways that we do that, we have a training program through Ironbound Community Corporation for customer service. If someone is looking to get into the customer service role, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay, there we go. All right, so what are some of the things you look for as a manager when looking for customer service reps, when looking for someone who will either lead those reps, work with those reps? What are some of those core qualities that transcend different industries that you look for?
Oh, well, yeah, that's a great question, Della. And just to kind of take a step back in terms of my particular role. So my role is a people care director. And so what that means is I'm responsible for caring for the employees at Audible who care for our customers, right? So that means that I basically help to align their personal experiences and needs with their professional needs, experience, and goals, right? So that's just in a nutshell. Our customer care area in particular is pretty much the lifeblood of our organization. They are on the front lines, touching base with our customers, answering questions, giving them recommendations, and essentially having conversations around a variety of topics, but also helping them troubleshoot. So when you think about what we look for in a potential employee, we're thinking of some very transferable skills when you think about relationship management, ability to problem solve, listening. Hello. We're called Audible, so listening is absolutely top characteristic. So if there are ways to shine a light on those characteristics as you build out your LinkedIn profile to showcase how you are a great listener, someone who is wonderful or does a wonderful job at managing relationships, who is able to connect with people and build rapport without actually knowing an individual, these are the types of skills that will come in handy in customer care.
Wonderful. So that leads me right into my next question. What do you look for if a slate of candidates comes before you? And I know oftentimes you may not interact with that person until they're actually hired. But if you're on that panel and you're looking at the LinkedIn profile, what are you looking for from a management's perspective?
Great question. Okay, so remember we talked about our people principles, and our people principles, there are 5 of them. In fact, I carry them around on my phone as my screensaver so I can remind myself of them all the time. But definitely that's something that as you look into an Audible or any company for that matter, understand what makes that company tick. What are they about, right? So when you look at our 5 people principles, I mentioned one of them is activating caring. If you can find ways to highlight how you align in terms of your experience, your passions, the work that you have done with those principles, that's something to include on your LinkedIn profile. We're looking for, and what Jim and Miriam shared earlier is spot on. We're looking for those keywords that pop. And when I talk about the keywords that pop, it may not be a keyword that pops to me as an individual reading your profile. It will be an algorithm or one of those shortcuts that the LinkedIn tool provides, or that one of our, a software that we use, something like a Textio or something like that, will pick up on and make the process of filtering through thousands of applications a little bit easier by giving us bite-sized servings of the talent that matches our needs. So LinkedIn, for example, they have this job matching offering a feature where we would post our job. When we go to click on our job, LinkedIn will automatically look for the keywords in our posting. So again, look for keywords and postings, put those keywords in your profile, in your resume, in your cover letters, right? So those things will be automatically tagged and pulled through potentially to the batch that LinkedIn serves up to us to then start to do our own filtering process.
Wonderful. That is key. I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with that LinkedIn match feature, but thank you so much for bringing that up. So everyone explore that. Tasha, you mentioned, we're going to bring Jim back on and Miriam back on and Shuruq. We're going to bring our whole squad up. of the squad today. We're going to bring everybody up to answer some questions, but you mentioned a tool called Texio. This question is for both Jim and Tasha. We know that the applicant tracking systems, and we've learned that applicant tracking systems pre-screen candidates, and Jim, you talked about that in the beginning. Can either or both of you jump in and just give us a little insight into some of the AI, artificial intelligence, that's being used to pre-screen candidates before they even get to a person?
I'll defer to Jim on that one.
So, essentially what I would basically say, the way that these algorithms are set up right now, you certainly want to make sure that your profile, your resume and your profile has keywords related to the job. So if the job you're applying, if you're example I will give is a marketing manager, and you're applying for a product marketing manager role, in your resume, in the keywords, you need to have the words product and marketing pretty close to each other. Because if you're just a marketing person, or you're just one company may call it a brand manager, one company may call it a marketing manager. So it's important to look at some of the keywords that are in that job posting. You still have to be 100% truthful on your resume, but if you could use brand versus marketing, and the job you're applying, and your job title is brand, but the job you're applying for is a marketing manager, make sure that you have those types of things coming up in your keywords. The key thing is, it's really difficult to, let's say, beat the algorithm. That's why this idea of networking is critical, because the way you beat the algorithm is you skip it. So yes, it is important to go online and get your resume in the system. That's actually one thing I want to emphasize. Don't skip the online application. Put your resume into the system, so you're registered, you're being screened. Because if you do skip the system, a hiring manager may get your resume and say, "This is great. I would love to have a networking call with you. By the way, have you applied online?" And you say, "Yep, I'm already in your system." So HR is not going to slap your hand for talking to me. I'm already in the system. But again, to beat the algorithm, make sure your resume has those truthful keywords from the job description, but also be focused on leapfrogging the out.
Absolutely. And if I could add to that, Jim, that great point. Definitely the way to leapfrog is to develop those relationships and network away, whether it's in person or now virtually. I will say, just one of my pet peeves is someone who heavily uses social tools, digital tools. One of the things I kind of despise is when someone reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I'm looking for a job. Can you help me find a job at," let's say, Audible? So that's a pretty broad request. I have no idea what your skills are, what you're looking for, and what have you. And my first instinct, or my advice typically in that space, is, have you checked our job board? What looks interesting to you? Or is anything that you're doing now applies to what you would like to do here, right? So those are the kind of questions. Definitely, when you do show interest and apply online and able to answer that question to the recruiter, guess what? That shows that you have interest in us. You've already invested in us. So now it's our turn to now reciprocate and invest in you, whether it's an exploratory conversation or further interviews along the line. So yes, thank you for sharing that, Jim. And Della, because we love stories, I have one quick one if we have time to share.
All right, please share.
Okay. All right, so I'll share this quick story. So what I was really moved by what Jim and Miriam shared today about the value of networking and sort of how do you skip the line. So has worked very well for me, both for my current role at Audible, which came about not necessarily through LinkedIn, but establishing a relationship with professional contacts on a variety of social tools. It just so happens that I was connected to a former boss on Instagram, of all places, and sort of kept our relationship alive through likes and comments and what have you. But for LinkedIn, I was working about 2-3 years ago at JetBlue, having a great experience there. And I periodically got into the habit over the course of my career of checking LinkedIn to see what my favorite companies are up to. What are they posting about? You know, what are they hiring? What kind of roles are they looking for? To see if there would be anything that would pique my interest. And at this particular point in time, my interest was piqued, and I took that as an opportunity to assess what I was doing in my career at the time and whether it was worth taking the risk. Now, it's Twitter. So I thought, there's no way someone is just going to randomly look at my application amongst thousands of applications or resumes. What could I do to try to help skip the line, to Jim's point? So I reached out to the head of the department who was actually hiring for this particular role. I had been connected to her based on having gone to a conference in the past and connecting that way. So I reached out to her. It was around Thanksgiving. I said, happy Thanksgiving. I hope all is well. Noticed you had an opening. Would love to talk more about it. Here's attached my resume and cover letter. I've already applied. If you would like to connect and hear what I've been up to lately, would love to have the conversation. And I also told her that I was the person she was looking for the job. So she did send me a note that day, and it was a very simple, here's my email address at Twitter, contact me, let's talk. And so that was the beginning of the conversation. And she did say the two things that made a difference for me, because it came down to me and one other person, was the fact that I was very confident about being the person for the role, that I had engaged on the product, the tool on Twitter. So I had a passion for the product. And the fact that I was just committed to being seen. So it makes a difference. It really does work.
I love that story. So there were some really key points in there. So you brought up the confidence, but I think the other key is it connects to what you and Jim were saying. You applied for the job. So you weren't talking about it. You were in action with it. So everyone, please take note. She was in action. Okay, she was in action before she reached out. So make sure that you are applying as you're reaching and connecting to folks. And I think the other part that was really wonderful is that you kept that relationship warm. You keep your relationships warm with folks. You may not need them at this moment, but stay in touch with everyone. And, I'm a task oriented, we do these personality tests, and I'm very task oriented. So I'm low on the relational side. And so for me, I have to take extra time to be relational, right? So it sounds like you do this quite naturally in the to all of our audience, whether you're task oriented, whether you're relational, keep your relationships warm, nurture them. You meet someone and you may not be looking for a job now, but in the future, just work on building relationships authentically without the ask first, I think is really important. And I think we talked about that a little bit in one of our previous sessions. So thank you for that. Shuruq, I know we have a lot of questions. So Shuruq is going to start with our Q&A.
All right, guys. So our first question is from Shayna. Several of her clients use LinkedIn. They have the right experience and tenure. Several only have an associate's or no degree. How should they address that through the LinkedIn targeted approach you are discussing?
So what I would recommend is, this is another reason why you have to network and kind of, apply online, but sort of skip the process. The reason why I say that is, if you do not have the degree that the job requires, the algorithm may be set in such a way that to automatically reject your resume based on the degree. So this is where selling comes in and why you need to network, because oftentimes, and I have several Fortune clients who have, and it occurs for me a lot outside of the US actually, because last year I made placements in 14 countries. So we run into, at the executive level, the folks not having a degree quite often. So what happens at a large company, if it is a position that HR has determined a degree is required, you need to basically get permission as a hiring manager, to change that. The only way they will go to bat, so to speak, is if they speak to somebody, fall in love with that individual, and then say, okay, I'm going to go into HR and and get an exception. So that's why if you're one of those folks and you're applying for a role that says clearly it requires a bachelor's degree, for instance, you need to really network at that company. Because there's nothing that you can do specifically to your profile. It's going to be your ability to sell.
I would agree with that, Jim. The way it's set up, we do try to filter in order to kind of trim the number of applications and resumes we receive. So it is key to have someone who is, what I like to say, is wearing your t-shirt. So who will walk into the room and say, hey, take a look at Tasha. She is amazing at this. But the other thing that you can do is work on what complements your experience. So if you have an associate's in computer science, right, and we are looking for someone who has an advanced degree, there are other ways you can signal on your LinkedIn profile that you have experience, whether it's through volunteer experience, which at Audible we definitely consider strongly. It could also be through blogging or some other demonstration of your expertise that shows through your LinkedIn profile. And I would say, and I know this varies recruiter to recruiter, so Jim and Miriam, I'll be interested in your thoughts on this, but there are recruiters who do take a close look at cover letters. And that's somewhere where your experience can pop, the keywords can pop where you may not have CS degree on your resume, but you're able to speak to some of the things that words or keywords, experiences that would pop there in a cover letter. But it's also a place to show passion. And for companies that are interested in sort of the behind the scenes, what makes this person tick, a cover letter is a good place to invest that energy.
And I actually, to kind of follow up on Tasha's point, which is excellent, when you think about the about section or the summary of your LinkedIn profile, that's kind of your cover letter, so to speak, in terms of saying, this is who I am. I'm a passionate brand builder. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm someone who thrives in this type of an environment. When you are doing that about section, take some of those, because the cover letter, as Tasha said, some recruiters read it, some don't. I'll be honest, I don't read the cover letter, but I read the LinkedIn summary. Yes. Because and particularly now, because we're in this virtual environment where, when we were in the office, someone may have printed out resumes and cover letters and handed those off. Now, because we're getting all of this stuff virtually, we're missing that point. So that's why, even the summary on the resume, I prefer that to tell me a little bit about the person, but certainly the summary on the LinkedIn profile. And especially if you are, and that's why when Miriam was talking about building out the LinkedIn profile, why it's so important to have a full profile is if you're going to network with somebody, they want to see who the individual is. They want to see where are you volunteering? What activities are you doing? It's really important to have because I see so many LinkedIn profiles where I go and they may not have a picture, or they have, as Miriam had talked about, a bad picture, or they just don't have a lot of information there. And if I'm going to network with somebody, I want to become fast friends. And what better way to become a fast friend is to read their profile and kind of see what the person's all about.
Yeah, to add on to Jim, again, it's all about personalizing who you are as a person and really letting somebody get some insight to who you are as a person. I know for me personally, I always struggled with writing my summary because I was like, okay, what do I want someone to see? So for me, I try as a student from a different perspective, try to write about my aspirations, what kind of industry I'm trying to break through. What am I currently reading? What news do I like to follow when it comes to business trends and disruptive trends? Am I actually interested in learning about those trends? It's, again, all about humanizing who you are as a person on LinkedIn.
That's great.
Wonderful. Shuruq, do you want me to take the next question, or do you have it?
I do have one. I have a question from Dara Turman. He asks, please explain the LinkedIn learning about identifying needed skills for a functional area.
So I'll take this one. So for LinkedIn Learning, if I understand your question correctly, they actually identify if you follow a certain industry or you have your filtered profile set to an industry, it shows you what skills are highly viewed, highly required within that industry. So it filters it out for you where they recommend, for example, if you're consulting, it'll show you strategy workshops or project managing workshops. It'll show you seminars and modules that will be relevant to your industry, because they help filter it and narrow it down for you to realize what's trending in your industry, what's trending with people in your current role, and what skills are people upgrading or really learning more about in your role in your industry.
Wonderful. Great response, Miriam. Thank you. All right, let's take a look. All right, we have a question from Bindu James. Let's take a peek. All right, give us 2 seconds. We're just, we have a few questions coming in. Okay. Shuruq, do you see Bindu's? Okay, let's see. I think it's on our slide. Okay, give me 2 seconds. All right, so. Okay, so we have a question. One of our candidates applied for a job at one of our anchor institutions for their customer call center. He did the virtual interview and it went through. They said he was selected, but by the end of the day, he got something saying that he didn't get the job. We know a lot of times that the candidates, when disengaged, don't get feedback. Any recommendations on how to speak with hiring managers or how to follow up just to get some feedback on what went wrong or where they can improve?
I could, oh, go ahead, Miriam.
No, you go first. Sorry.
Well, I'll take a quick crack at that. So the first thing I wanted to speak on is the thought that something went wrong. It's not necessarily the case that something went wrong, right? You could have done everything perfectly. It could just be the fact that there were several people who were also in the same boat as you in terms of being selected and moving through the process. And by the time they had to decide who to select to move on to the next process, next part of the process, it could have been a matter of, all right, well, who had the most of X or the most of Y or the most of Z in terms of qualifications? If everyone is exactly the same in terms of what they offer on paper and in terms of the experience based on the virtual phone interview, then it's a matter of timing, right? So it could have been that they saw person A earlier in the period versus person B. So there are a lot of other factors that can be considered as well. It's not necessarily a matter of doing something incorrectly.
Yeah, and Jen, just to touch on that, the other piece too is sometimes jobs go internal or they go on hold. Sure. So it may just be that happened. Now, I'll be honest, I'm a recruiter where companies pay me tens of thousands of dollars to fill roles. I don't get feedback often on some of my candidates. The client just says, not right, or I got a little bit of feedback. Some clients are better at it. Sometimes I have to follow up 3 times to try to get feedback so I can put that into my next round of interviews. But feedback is a challenge for me as a vendor who is contracted to fill jobs sometimes. So yeah. I know everyone loves feedback, and that's why if you are networking for a job, sometimes you can reach out to that person who was the intermediary that helped to get you the interview to say, hey, I just would love to get some constructive feedback. And then they can get that. But feedback, just because people are so busy, it is often hard to come by. I'll just be honest with you. So there's no easy answer.
Sorry. Yes, I was just going to say, absolutely agree. I don't think there isn't anything wrong with asking for the feedback, but be prepared to not get it either because the The recruiters are overwhelmed with their job searches or what have you, and they don't have a policy to provide feedback. There are all types of, again, reasons for that. But I do love the recommendation you gave, Jim, of the relationships matter. So if you do have someone who is working on your behalf, an advocate, again, who's wearing your t-shirt, that individual may have a better chance of going back to the recruiter or to the hiring manager and getting that feedback and informally feeding it back to you. So I love that point.
All right, everyone, we are now at 12:35, a very robust conversation. I want to thank everyone, all of our speakers today, Tasha, Jim, Miriam, just for a wonderful and robust conversation about LinkedIn and connecting. You gave out some great information. Everyone, please use your LinkedIn now. Connect to all of our speakers. Follow the Newark 2020 LinkedIn page and connect with us there as well. So thank you for your time, speakers.
And
Yes.
one note, Della, yes, if you do reach out to me on LinkedIn, be sure to mention Newark 2020. So that it was great to just have some context as to where we met.
Wonderful tip.
And I just wanted to close out with one thing, just for anyone who's going on a job interview. The biggest negative feedback or reason that I find a lot where people aren't selected for a job beyond the first call is because they don't do enough research on the company. If you're interviewing at Audible, download an Audible book and talk about the last book that you listened to on Audible. If you're interviewing for a job at Kraft Heinz, go to a supermarket. Tell the person, I took a walk through the supermarket. I just want to see how your products looked on the shelf. If you're interviewing with a publicly held company, go online and listen to the CEO's investor earnings call to say, I listened to the CEO speak about this. I get even executives, I get this feedback all the time of they did the basic level of acceptable research. They went on the website. Take it a step further. As Tasha said, when you're sending when you're connecting with somebody to network, when you're asking a question, it's a specific job. It's take it the extra step because 90% of the people don't. And if you want to stand out, there are simple things that one could do on a job search. So I just wanted to make that point and leave it there.
Wonderful. So to both of your points, we have an app that we've partnered with, One Huddle. One Huddle gamifies learning about companies. So all of our Newark 2020 partners are on One Huddle. So audience, please make sure you downloaded the One Huddle app. Use the code HIRENEWRK to have access to all of the companies that have either presented this during the 8 sessions and are a part of the Newark 2020 Employer Collaborative. So thank you so much. I am going to share my screen again, and we're going to announce our Slay Your Space winner. Okay. Let me hop through. Bear with me, everybody. All right, so we want to once again thank Audible for providing free listens. Everyone should have gotten their free listen this morning. If you did not get your free listen and you've attended more than one session, please let us know in the chat right now because everyone should have received their free listen. All right, we had a lot of slides today. Bear with me, everybody. Okay, here we go. All right, so the winner of our Slay Your Space home office makeover is Stacy Outerbridge. Round of applause for Stacy. Drum roll. that's my drum roll. So we want to thank Stacy for sending in her space. Stacy will be contacted directly by Bailey Lee Interiors, who will help you do a virtual makeover of your home office space. She's going to help you get it right. So thank you for everyone who submitted pictures of your space. Thank you everyone who just shared your space with us. Some folks had their space already laid out, and we had some wonderful, wonderful pictures. there. So thank you so much for sharing that. As we come to an end for our virtual career coaching series, remember that now is your time. Now is your time to reset. Now is your time to restart. The world is reopening again. New Jersey is reopening again. Our businesses are reopening again. Get that resume ready so that as businesses begin to reopen, you are positioned to apply for these different roles. Make sure that your LinkedIn profile is optimized. All right. Make sure that everything is reading like an amazing movie trailer, right? Make sure that it tells a story of who you are. It tells your journey. It shares with the world all of the best things that you bring to the table. I want to thank you for sharing so much of your time with us over the past 8 weeks. I hope that this has been a valuable tool for you to move forward. Our next event is going to be on July 1st. We have a virtual job fair. Everyone that has registered for a session will get a link to register for the virtual job fair, and it will have all of the employers who are currently hiring. Only employers that are currently hiring will be a part of this job fair. So we will have that posted for you over the next couple of days where you can go on and register. It'll be July 1st from 9:30 to 3:30. We want to thank you. We look to see you at the job fair. Be blessed and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful summer.